Hi, this is Scrapping Amy with One Mommy Scrapping, where I am planning for happy memories. Today, we are going to talk about how I use the things on my desk to make my digital die cuts that have been cut out stand out and pop up from the paper. Let's get started. Before we get started, if you enjoy scrapbooking and creating layouts and learning about all sorts of products that are currently available in the scrapbooking market, I would love if you would subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. I'm trying very hard to remember to ask you to do those things at the beginning instead of the end, when at that point everybody's clicked off and nobody's subscribing to your channel. Does any of that make sense? Anyways, so first things first, I will be doing a special bonus episode on how I cut out all of this stuff. I will say I use my Silhouette Cameo, and there are a couple different things that I can do to have that cut out for me. But when I do cut it out, I love to have all of the embellishments together. When I cut out a full letter size sheet, I want to make sure there is as many embellishments on that sheet as possible. So I cram them in, which means that when it comes time to cut it out and then make the layout, I have lots left over. Lots left over does not bother me with die cuts. I have already been using these with other collections and on other layouts, like, oh, I have this yellow heart, star, clover, diamond, purple horseshoe. But I have this yellow die cut that would work really, really well. So having them in these envelopes, these are from scrapbook.com. They're really awesome. And not sponsored. But these are great. So I just wanted to show you, this is what I use to keep my die cuts together. And even when they're die cuts that are the pre-made ones and not the digital ones. So overall, all of the things that you are going to see out on my desk that are a die cut are ones that I have printed and then cut out, with the exception of this. I don't know which way it goes. This is a 3x4 card from the cut apart sheet. It's the one with the pretty yellow gingham in the back. And I'm using this kind of as a size reference, because when you cut things out and you move them over from your, I just drag and drop my PNGs over from the file I have them in on my desktop to the Silhouette, and it goes whoosh, like so big. Not seeing my hands is actually kind of how big it is. So you have to resize things a lot. And when you resize, you've got a lot of freedom, but sometimes it can be hard to figure out, like, exactly how big is that die cut that I have up on my screen, because it looks like it's this big, but then when I print it, it's like this big, and I needed the size in between. So having something like, I'll pull one of the 3x4 cards and size it to 3x4, so that kind of gives me a gauge, because even though there are grid marks on the in the program, for my head, I actually have to have a visual representation. So speaking of different things, this is the same heart sized 3 different times. I decided, you know what, let me just do some big, medium sized, and little hearts. And I did it with all of the colors that they had. And these have been great to just tuck in. And I'm going to show you, see some on my plate right here. Let me show you some things that I did with these. These are completely just flat. And I don't want to say boring, because they're not boring, but they're ordinary. Ordinary, does that work? So doing things in different sizes, I have found, is really awesome. And not just different sizes, but different papers. So that's on white cardstock, and this one's on vellum. I found my pack of vellum, and I'm like, ooh, I can. Suddenly it was like light bulbs going off, y'all. Because if you're familiar, I can talk with Vicki Booten's Color Study collection. She has these awesome fabric flowers with these vellum petals on top. It's a lot of layering and texture, and I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. Let me tell you, it's less cool when it is flat and you're looking at that going, well, that's supposed to be shiny gold thread, and these are supposed to be like fabric and dimensional. So we're going to talk about how we take something that, I'm sorry, it seems flat and boring to me. If it doesn't seem flat and boring to you, wow. We're going to talk about how to change that. So here we go. So sizing things, I originally created this to be a title on a layout. This I wanted to be just a little thing, like in a little embellishment cluster. I found that I've had a lot of fun printing on vellum, and not necessarily things I was expecting. This isn't it, because I think I used it in a layout already, but there are these water rings or coffee rings, you know, like with watercolor, and I had space, so I tossed one on a vellum sheet. And oh my gosh, I love it because it is like having that ring of color, just like it would, you know, actually like be if I set a paint cup on my layout. So I just had to share that. I thought it was fun. Something else that's wonderful to do if you have the digital programs that will do it. And like I said, I use my Cameo software for all of this, the Design, Silhouette America. I don't even know what they call their software. If I remember, I'll put like a name of it somewhere over here. Anyways, you can do things like mirror. So this is the exact same banner. I just flipped it over, which then of course gives me, it looks completely different. And if I have them kind of on, you know, little off uneven and with some other ones tossed in, it gives me more opportunity than having just the two, and then it definitely looks like I'm repeating the same thing over and over again. At least it does to me. Those are the silly things that I notice. Now, we're going to get to all of this in just a moment. Let's first talk about the easiest thing to bring to our layouts and adding dimension, and that is adhesive foam. I started off with using tons and tons of foam dots. I love these. If you're a foam dot person, use these. They're wonderful. I have been really finding, though, I love the foam rolls from scrapbook.com. Still not sponsored, but if scrapbook.com, you want to send me some foam rolls, I'm okay with that. I love that they have different widths. Having 1 inch, having 2 inch, having 1/4 inch has been wonderful. They even have 1/8 inch in strips. They don't have this in a roll, but that would be so amazing too. I would love to have it in a roll. What I really like about the scrapbook.com foam adhesive is that it's dense. I tried to get by with using some of the cheap stuff from Amazon with when I started making cards, and it worked. It worked great. But then when I tried this out for the first time and actually went, wow, it was like there was no going back. I used up the cheap roll of foam as fast as I could, and these I think are just my second rolls for all of these sizes, and I'm going to need to order more soon anyways. So one way to do that within embellishments, I'm going to be showing you this layout a lot because I have a lot of different examples on here, but one way that I used the foam is with this white card. Now this white card here should be a 3x4. So again, as a 3x4, it would not work. It's too big. So just being able to size it down is awesome. What else I liked about it is the 3x4 card has this exact print on it. And I don't even know if I can peel it up at all and show you that it's under there. But they also have this as a separate die cut. So I put them both on the same file and sized it so that way I can put it right on top just like I did. And then I've got that little bit of added dimension in there, that little bit of shadow, which adds just to something a little fun. It's hard to see on camera. It's hard to see in person, to be completely honest with me and my old eyes. But there is watercolor texture in the background because I know my first thought was, well, I could just do that with any piece of white cardstock. And then I'm like, I suppose I could, but I might want to do it with a little piece of white cardstock that I have added some interest to. Another thing that I was experimenting with is Nuvo Drops. As you can see, I've got a variety here. It is no secret that I adore Nuvo. And then the first thing I realized, so this in the actual, I don't want to say real world, but this digital stuff's real world too. But in the physical product that you can buy, these are puffy stickers. They're puffy hearts and puffy stars. Sadly, the puffy stars are not part of the digital collection. I wish they were. That would have been awesome. And so when I look at this, knowing it's supposed to be something puffy and it being completely flat, it cut flat, not fat, I can talk. Being completely flat, it made me a little sad. And then I realized, you know what, I have puff paint. I know that's not what we call it, but in my head, this brings me back to my childhood and making shirts with puff paint and glitter and stuff all over it. And hey, could I just not trace that black line and add dimension with my Nuvo Drops? And so that's exactly what I did. And it was, I started off doing it. It was really, I did it the hard way because, you know, it's me. Why not do it the hard way? And what I finally realized that worked particularly well for me is to take a piece of washi tape and stick the shape. I did this with these little hearts there too. Stick the shape to it, and then I can hold the washi tape down as I'm adding on the Nuvo Drops. And it suddenly went from being something that my hands got really, really messy with to, oh, well, that's easy. Now, here's the hard part, because there's got to be a hard part with everything, right? There's always one part that's harder than the others. You got to check and make sure. Now, right here, there are no Nuvo Drops. So I'm going to go back in and make sure that I've got them all along. All right. Looks like I could use a little bit, kind of. I'm going to do the little drag method and drag some over. Okay, here we go. Hard part. Stuck to my finger now. So I will take it and then I kind of try to roll it off. It actually goes right up here. I've got a little shelf, and that's where I tend to stick things that dry. And currently that's where my little poutine cup is. Oh! And then I flip it over and completely don't mess it up. Now I'm just playing with fire. Oh, there you go. It got off me. All right, so I'm going to let that sit. I let it dry overnight, and tomorrow I've got something that has a little bit more of dimension to it. It's not the exact same thing as what you get at in the store, but you know what? For how I'm using it, it's gonna work. So let's talk about these other hearts that I have here. These are ones where I was trying to actually make it look more like a puffy heart. So of course I thought, well, you know what? I've got the Morning Dew Nuvo Drops. And I do have the pops of color. So this is Tonic Studios. This is scrapbook.com. I got a lot of scrapbook.com stuff today. And they're both clear. Let me see if they work. And then I found my Crackle Accents, which I bought many moons ago and wasn't even sure if it still worked. It does. And I found my fine lighter bottle of Glossy Accents. I have no idea where I put the actual bottle of this, but this was the bottle I discovered. I hate fine liner bottles because the bottle in particular, I cannot squeeze. Like, it requires, I don't know, it's like it's made of titanium or something. Like, how strong can we get to squirt it out? So let's see here. We're going to go right down the line. These are the Nuvo Drops, and because I got big ginormous fingers, let's pull out our what's this called? Tweezers. So, as much as I love Nuvo Drops, this is not a Nuvo Drop situation. If you want to cover the entire thing and make it dimensional, don't pick Nuvo Drops. I say that, I'm sad, but I'm going to be honest with you. Because this was such a large area, it did not self-level. Normally when you do just like the little dots like I did with these black ones, you put it on, it gets a little bit of a Hershey Kiss top, and then it kind of settles out. It's self-leveling. For such a large area, it's not. Plus, when it was dry, and I don't know how well this is going to show on screen, I am going to probably put in some close-ups so you can actually see it. But when I bent it, it cracked. And, you know, it's not like I'm going to stick it on the layout and bend it back and forth a lot, but I would kind of like it to be able to withstand, you know, me. Here are the pops of color. Ironically named in this case since there is no color. Same issue with self-leveling. You can see where I use like the tip of the nozzle to attempt, I don't even know why I bother, to attempt to flatten it out. It is flexible, so if I stuck this in a bag and it got kind of curved in the corner, I wouldn't be too worried about it. But it's still not what I would choose to cover it if I wanted that. So things that did work. One that worked were the Crackle Drops. There were two issues with this. One, I don't like the crackle look on these, so that's just a purely aesthetic thing. If you like the crackle look, go for it. But the other thing was that all three of these did this to a certain extent, but Crackle Accents was worse in causing the black ink to bleed. So again, close-up shots right here. Come on, editing Amy, you can do it. Having the ink bleeding really, for me, was a turn-off, and I would not use that on a layout, even if I liked the crackly part. The last one I had that I tried out were Glossy Accents. There was no bleeding with this, which surprised me. I mean, I'm dealing with an inkjet printer, so if the paper gets wet, it's going to bleed, which has been a problem with some of these, and I'll show you those in a moment and talk about why. But it didn't bleed, which was wonderful. It's self-leveled. I would actually use this. In fact, since this bottle and I do not get along at all, I've already been on Amazon and ordered a box of glossy accents that comes in this bottle, which I can handle. So, glossy accents, awesome choice. If you are someone that likes glossy accents or likes this look and likes the fine liner bottle, highly recommend it, because it's the same skinny tip that I love and adore in my art glitter glue container, but it's just the bottle. I don't know what I need to do to it. It's like, do I have to exercise it and get it soft? I don't know. So, glossy accents, good choice. I purchased a long time ago and finally decided to use, and that is the Deco Foil. I do not have a laminator, and the only reason I decided I was going to try this was because I finally was like, you know what, I bit the bullet, got the Transfer Gel Duo. The Duo is one that will work with both a heat laminator and with a die cut machine, whether it's manual or electric, but one where you have the plates that both slide through. If you can do metal dies on it, this will work for you. In my playing around, I discovered a couple things. First of all, these 4 shapes here, the quotation, and the center of this were all applied with this. I actually just got my paintbrush and kind of dipped it in and went around, let it dry. It dries relatively fast. I think it tells you how long to let it sit and dry. Let gel dry 1 hour or until clear. So I'm assuming if you put it on a larger area, it would take a lot longer to dry. Because let me tell you, I'm doing the 6th side on these and the first side's dry. And I'm like, did I put on enough? Did I do this side? So this worked well enough that I went ahead and bought their adhesive pen, which is kind of like this, but in adhesive form. And that's what I did for these dots and for these dots. I don't remember what I used for that one. What did I use for that one? I think I used a different pen. So here's what I discovered. If you have either the Nuvo glue pens or the Zig 2-way glue pens, or you have something where when you put it on, it's like the 2-way adhesive. You can either put it on and stick your 2 pieces of paper together and it's permanent, or you can put it on, let it dry, stick your piece of paper to it, and it's repositionable. If you've got one that will do that, it is likely to work with this Deco Foil. Because what I ended up doing was, I'm waiting for this pen to come in, so I'm like, well, what do I have that might work? I played around with these. Still put them on, let it dry. Once it was dry, I put a little piece of the foil on top. And here's the other thing I did. I didn't run it through my laminator. I did that once. I don't even remember which one I started with. Probably one of these hexagons, because they had straight lines. And I'm like, I can do a straight line. But after I realized, this glue works, I went ahead and put it on and then would just rub with my bone folder over it, and that was enough to make it stick. Now, is that how it's supposed to work? No. Okay? So if you do it and it doesn't work for you, I don't know why. Apparently I'm magical then. But it did work for this. It worked for this. It worked for these, because I kind of stopped playing around with using this on such small areas when I realized that, my pens, even the little, tiny little tip there, works beautifully. I think that's the tip I used on this one, if I'm not mistaken. And then this one, I think, was that tip. And this one comes with 2 tips. I didn't realize it. So there's this rounded bullet tip, and then, here we go. And then there's one you can put in there that's actually like a chisel tip. I don't even know if y'all can see that. But I was like, well, dang, I wish I would have known that, because that would have given me finer lines. But hey, live and learn. And then get loves, because I'm a product of TV commercials. Anybody else remember those commercials? So, there we go. Those are, I highly suggest, if you already have some of this foil, try it out. I'm literally, I'm going to show you right here. I'm cutting like pieces of foil this big, and then I save them. And I'm like, ooh, let me try dots on this. Ooh, let me try that. I'm playing around. And I got to tell you, that's really fun. Like, it's been a while since I've just played. I really want to figure out a way to do like a super fine edge. Go like this, because there's like this really thin line around the outside of the speech bubble that I would bet is in gold foil on the actual physical product. That is the biggest drawback I have found with using the digital things, is they'll print the foil stuff and it will be like gold, like it's, you know, like a shimmer gold, but it doesn't shimmer. It's a static picture of how it looks. So that's why I wanted to try playing around with the foil, because I'm like, man, if I could get some of those foiled accents on the things I'm printing, that would be really helpful for me. Now, I kept these out for a reason, because we're going to go over to here. Before we start with the flowers, though, I wanted to start with the banners. So I have over here, I've got two types of, well, not counting that one, but I've got two different kinds of drops that I used primarily. First was jewel drops. I'll include a list of the colors that I use. You can use any colors that you have. These just happen to be ones that worked. And then I also pulled out the dream drops, and I use the dream drops in a couple different ways, and I use these in a couple different ways too, actually. But one of the first things that I used them for was for this banner. I went and like every third circle, I went and I'm trying to turn in the light so you can see it. I covered it with the matching jewel drop color. So I really, really like how that turned out. I've got my aqua, I've got my dark blue, I've got my orange, and it's just like, wow, that it, because I'm using the colored ones, it helps to kind of intensify that. Like if I compare, ooh, I'm just dropping everything. If I compare this orange to this orange, they're the same orange, but this one has more color on top of it. So now that I've not, you know, I don't say not printed it because it's still printed, but it added a little bit of extra punch in there. And this kind of makes me want to go through and kind of do every other one, let it dry, and then go back through and fill in all the ones that I didn't do. I think that would be really cool. And this is what I was talking about. Like, you've got the different, like I could easily put that on here like this, and even though, here, cover that up, even though these two happen to be exactly the same, having them, pull out this one, having them be backwards from each other adds a lot. And you can, I don't even know if y'all can see from that. This is just annoying sometimes. But the, it adds just a little something. And I think that's why I've always been hesitant to do anything with digitals, is because they lacked those special things that, the already cut out ones. Is that how I would say that? I don't even know. Let's see here. Okay. So here we go. This is one of the die cuts that has the ring around it that I printed on vellum. Absolutely love it and cannot wait to use that on a layout. Now, these flowers, let's talk about those. So the blank ones that you get are not the 8-leaf ones, okay? So they do not match up perfectly. But you know what? They don't have to match perfectly. I ended up for this, actually I'm going to show you the, I don't know why I apparently decided to make my sample with the teeny tiny size one, but I went and took the petals for the vellum and I kind of ran them through my finger a little bit to give them that little bit of a curl, and then literally plunked white glue down. I used my like that label is helpful. Oh my gosh. I don't even know if that's the front or the back. My Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. That's how much I use this. Put that there, press it on top, and just went. And so having that little bit of curl, you still see the flat photo, but it adds a bit more. Now, this is where having some of the foiling done, because I could add gold foil to this, so I would have a little bit of gold in the center, or I could add gold Nuvo Drops, gold glitter, gold Stickles, something to help bring in that color. I could even go through if I wanted to and sew a little bit on there after the glue is dry. I do not recommend sewing with wet glue. Do that at your own risk. But I just even like how this looks. This is no further treatment than literally curling the little petals to pull up. Now, if you decide to do this, you need to be smarter than I was. When you print this off, I think this is, I had it 3 inches. Let's see, make sure here. This is a 3-inch one. Yep, this is a 3-inch one. And I went, ooh, I'm going to print off these at 3 inches. And then I was like, well, wait a second. That just covers up the entire flower. So my sister would go, or she'd tell me it's a good thing I'm pretty. Yeah. So if you do that, I would size down a little bit. I think I did this at 2.5 inches, if I remember. Yes, 2.5 inches. I think I sized down about 1/2 inch for all of them. But this is also something you could continue to do. I could do what I did here. I took my alcohol markers. I used the Copic Sketch, but you can use any alcohol marker, and I colored it, which was really fun. I did a variety of layers of color. So let's see here. These in particular, I've got V09 and V05, and I just would start at the base closest to the flower. You can see I immediately got purple on it. Oop, that's the chisel tip end. Don't want that. And then I would use the letter color to kind of bring it out. And then I think I even added a 3rd letter color, which I don't currently have pulled in the little stack. So it gives it, I know it sounds weird because it's not water, but it almost gives it a little bit of a watercolor look because they don't really blend as perfectly. It'd be super awesome if I had like white paper right here that I could just whip out and show you. Look at that. So you get some of that kind of mottled look. This is one where I did, I took on the front of the back. No, I did all this on the front. Did the yellow, it was around the V20 something family, because there's a V28 that I used. And when the alcohol dried, because it couldn't absorb into the paper because it's vellum, that's why you get kind of more of an almost watercolory look. And then I went over it with one of the glue pens and used the gold foil. So that was fun to do with coloring and the alcohol markers. I did not have any trouble coloring on with the Inkjet ink. And I say that because I did run into some coloring problems when I started using the Nuvo Drops. Now, I have, up until now, I'm pretty much, my Nuvo Drops are either circles or sometimes I get fancy and I make them into hearts. That's how I like them. That's what I bought them to use them for. And some people like are amazing with them. I'm just like, that's not me. That's fine. So, you know what? I'm like, let me try. And I used, it was, let me just roll everything everywhere. Thank you. I think for this one, I used Dream Cloud or Fairy Wings. And I don't know which, to be completely honest. But what I ended up doing was putting a small line of it, and then I would take the tip, just demonstrate here. So I'd put a line, and then I'd take that tip to kind of flick it out a little bit, and then I would use my pokey tool to flick it out even further. It kind of worked. It's a thicker medium and didn't work quite like I was hoping it would. The biggest problem, though, is that the Nuvo Drops made the ink run. And if I show you on the back, you can definitely see how the ink ran and bled all around. So that was a little disappointing to me because I'm like, well, great. I mean, I kind of like how it looks. That's very pretty. I could then color it. Could have colored it first and then done the Nuvo Drops. I could go back and put the Nuvo Drops on that if I wanted to. I'm not going to because I colored with that correct side up. So me and my brilliance decided, what if I colored on the other side of the flower? So there's the side that the ink printed on. I flipped it over and I used yellow, and I think I might have used this pink. So what is this, Lemon Drop? Lemon Twist. Lemon Twist and Love Potion. I did the same thing where I put a line, used the tip to drag it out, and then used the pokey tool to flick it out even further. And then when that was dry, I went back with the yellow and did the same thing from the tips going down. Because this is a smaller one, it almost kind of blends into each other, which I thought was a really pretty look. I could now use my alcohol markers and color the center if I wanted. I could apply foil. I bet I could even use alcohol markers like on top of it. I bet that would work. I might have to try some of that. That's an idea. But it did make, and you can see it with this, it made this curl a lot. I did not do any of the like curling like I did on purpose with this one. So it adds dimension because it's getting the paper wet, and just like if you get any paper wet, it's never going to be 100% flat. Again, let's see here. The last one for vellum, all I did was take my ebony black. Is it ebony black? I don't even remember now. Yeah, ebony black. Look at me. I do remember. And just put dots. Now here's the thing with these. The tip is a fine tip, but the tip seems huge compared to the size of the dots. So what I may do in the future is put out a little bit on like my mat or something, and then dip the tip of the pokey tool in and kind of go back and forth like that. I think I might like that better, but again, that's a personal thing. All right, so I have some that are not vellum. Let me put the vellum flowers back up on there. I'm almost done. Okay, so very simply, I took the key lime jewel drops and I just put them on like drops of water. You could also, of course, do that. There's with the clear, and then it looks, this is called morning dew because it's clear. It would look like morning dew. Woo! Y'all, I don't want to do anymore. Okay, so just adding a little bit on the flowers. That's a very simple thing to me. This one was my favorite. I took the Limoncello and I did the same technique that I did on this, where I put it down, moved it out, kind of flicked it out a little bit with the nozzle, and then came with the pokey tool and kind of flicked it out. It adds a really nice shine. Like, I know that's a treatment that they put on some papers and embellishments at times. And I'm like, wow, that looks awesome. I kind of want to go back and do that like down the center of the leaf and kind of flick it out like the veins of the leaf. This one I did the same. Actually, I did the exact same thing I did with this one. I think he even used the same colors where I ran around the outside and then did the tips, flicking them in, so you get a nice color shift. It did curl the paper, but I think this is something that would be easy to flatten out a little bit if I would probably stick something heavy on top of it instead of just letting it sit on the plate. I didn't do anything with these leaves. There are a couple times I did stuff to leaves, but not so much with these. This is an example, by the way, that I think something is foiled, because this is not one solid color, and I'm like, it's almost like it shifts from one color to the next as it goes from this side to that side. So that's something that I look for and try to take it and enhance it in some way. And then this is the last one that I did where I combined jewel drops in the middle. So I did all the Limoncello jewel drops on top of it, and then did the little flicking technique to go around. That flicking technique for flowers has been my favorite, and you're going to see that in just a moment. So let me clear this stuff out and get out the other stuff. So the final technique we are going to talk about tonight involves Stickles. I have Stickles in just about every color they've come out with, except probably in the past year to year and a half, maybe. Tons of them. You think I collected the Nuvo Drops? Ooh, Stickles were the first one for that baby. But what I ended up doing was trying to find the colors that I felt matched best. And so on this one, I used orange peel, appropriately named yellow, and oh, that's the wrong one, lavender. And I did that flicking technique. And this time, though, because of the type of flower it was and how it was pictured, I put it along the bottom, still flicked it out with the nozzle, and then came back and flicked it with the pokey tool. Did that for both of these. For the centers, which have all the glitter on them, I simply put some in there, and then I used the pokey tool to kind of manipulate where it was. One problem I did notice with this, which actually shows up in this one, but you have to look really carefully, is you again are getting ink wet. It's going to want to run. And so like some of this right in here, you can actually see where when I flicked, actually the paper's soft enough, I'm kind of ripping up just the very bit of the top. I mean, it looks completely fine on the back. It's not like I went through. So it's one where I'm like, oh, I need to make sure that I cover that up. Yeah, this flower, right? These two right here are like my favorite things that I made. Oh my gosh, I've been sitting here staring at them for days. Just like, oh, it's so pretty. Something I did do with this was add in some Nuvo Drops in Dragon Scales, and I put a little dot at the end of each flower and then did the flicking. So that was a lot of fun. Here's another one very much like that. I did it very small, and I didn't do every flower. This one I might come back and do something with the centers of these white ones, and maybe something with the leaves. And then this is also another flower type that is in the in this collection. So for these, all I did, like the pink one here, what is this pink called? Tickled Pink. I put it at the top and kind of dragged it down with the nozzle, and then I didn't flick, but same thing like I did with the centers over here. I went and used the end of the pokey tool to kind of manipulate where things were. So there you go. Those are some of my ways that I take a flat die cut and turn it from what is a fine embellishment, but I turn it into something that I think reflects myself and my personality even more, and it makes it more fun to see in the scrapbook. I cannot wait to go through. I want to do like a whole set of these in all different colors, and then do a layout of Elizabeth with them. I think they'd be so pretty. So what did you think? What is your favorite method of altering a die cut? Do you do any of the ones that I showed you? Are there ones that you're like, oh, you should have talked about this? Let me know. But now, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video and are not subscribed, I'd love if you would subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell so you're notified whenever I go live or upload a new video, and leave a comment down below. What'd you think? Are there one of these things you want to try out? So I hope you guys all have a lovely day. Don't forget to check out Sarah's video. Oh, I forgot to say that. I will link to it though. It's linked down below. Check out Sarah's if you haven't already. She's got more ideas. So what was I saying? I'm already forgetting. So you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you later.